My name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to Chaotic Risk Magazine. We're speaking with lead singer Joe Lawson from the band Scream Kings and Dragon Lore. Welcome to the show again, Joe. Excuse me, and we're interviewing you for our new on the record segment, which is where we talk to you about the music and an album that really had a major impact on you. And tonight you wanted to talk about Iron Maiden's 1986 album, Somewhere in Time. Which you included on your list, like a lot of the musicians I've been interviewing for this, about some of your most influential albums, and we're very happy to include Iron Maiden in that list of albums that we're going to be talking about. So let's start the interview off, Joe, if you don't mind, with talking about how did you first become an Iron Maiden fan, and talk a little bit about specifically Somewhere in Time, and how that album kind of came on your radar.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show, and appreciate it. And how I became a Maiden fan was in high school, man. I seen a kid wearing a T-shirt actually before I ever heard any of the music, and I thought, man, that's a really kick-ass T-shirt, and what's Iron Maiden, He kind of turned me on to it, and I was like blown away, like wow, and. Ever since then, I've been a fan, and Somewhere in Time is just one of my favorite records by him. It's just a classic. It's every song is connected. What I mean by that is not like a concept record, but more like a theme, and a feeling. Yeah. Each song feels connected, and bands like Iron Maiden were just phenomenal at doing that. I mean, I don't know if they did it on purpose, or it was just, the way that they did it, but a lot of their albums are that way. And
it's kind of interesting because I can tell you that's somewhat my experience of how Iron Maiden came on my radar, like a lot of other Maiden fans, which is I remember back in the day, as you may, Joe, back when they actually still had record stores, in LA, and, in California and everywhere. I remember going in a record store, I think it was even a Tower Records, and just going through the huge selection of music they used to have there, and coming across an Iron Maiden album. In fact, I think it might have even been Number of the Beast, and I just seen that album cover, not ever hearing an Iron Maiden song or anything, not knowing anything about, until I flipped the record over, what the band looked like, but just that cool looking cover, Eddie, I'm like kind of like what you said, man, what is this? I never even heard this band, but man, this album cover looks so cool. I got to get it.
Yeah, it's like a primal sensation of feelings and another world that just sucks you in. Everything from the artwork to the stage theatrics, the music to the lyrics. It really is the full package, and even to this day, they're still probably arguably one of the most successful, largest heavy metal bands in the world.
And what's interesting is Maiden, of course, is a European band from England, and originally, and what's kind of interesting is it's not just in their hometown where they're successful. I mean, they got worldwide domination. I mean, globally, they are everywhere.
Well, yeah, you got the lead singer that's a pilot that flies the band around the world. In their own jet. I mean, how cool is that?
Oh yeah. I mean, and see again, getting back to like the artwork and the album covers. I mean, that was a very important thing in many bands, especially in the 70s and 80s. But like a band like Maiden, it really didn't matter, if they were pretty boys or their looks really didn't matter, because I dare to say that there's a huge portion of the Maiden probably fan base really doesn't care what they look like. But a lot of people, in fact, I'm willing to bet people are more aware of what Eddie looks like than the lead singer, if you know what I mean, which is kind of interesting.
Right, yeah, that's because Maiden fans fell in love with what Iron Maiden truly represents, and the music and their legacy and everything that they are now isn't superficial like some of those other bands, that chicks are just digging because they like the guy because he looks good, Maiden fans, it's almost spiritual, and that's why it transcends generations too. You see these young kids out there, 35, 40 years later, chanting Iron Maiden lyrics, wearing Iron Maiden t-shirts.
And it's kind of interesting that not once in that 40-year career, like have they ever had a band photo on the front cover of an album. It's always been, Eddie. And the interesting thing about the Eddie mascot is Eddie does not ever look the same. It's always evolving. And what's interesting is that for years they had the same guy do it, the original artist Derek Riggs, but for whatever reason he's no longer doing it. But they still have people kind of. It's almost kind of like Spider-Man. You know, they have different artists do it, but it's ever evolving. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Again, that's a theme that's connected through their music and through their legacy. You know, from album to album. You know, that's kind of been it's anticipated and expected. You know, by Iron Maiden fans. You know.
I mean, could you imagine if they ever released, an album and they said, you know what, Eddie's dead, or we're retiring Eddie. You know, we're gonna have a new character. I mean, just
Eddie didn't make it through the coronavirus.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I dare say that, but you never know. And just think the backlash they would get. But I got to ask you, Joe, as far as Iron Maiden and you becoming a fan, like, did you become a fan after the original band broke up with Paul Di'Anno, or did you kind of come on?
I was pretty young when Paul Di'Anno was still in the band, to be honest with you. So I got introduced to Maiden with Bruce Dickinson as the singer. I didn't even know there was another singer probably till a couple of years after I was a Maiden fan, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, I'm kind of.
I love Paul Di'Anno. I respect him. Great singer. Nothing against him, but to me, Bruce Dickinson is the man. I mean, his voice is, to me, what Iron Maiden is associated with. You know, it's powerful, it's melodic, it's passionate. I mean, he's just a great vocalist. Definitely one of my most biggest influences vocally. Definitely, Bruce Dickinson's up there.
I mean, I think vocally, like especially people that are fans of metal music, probably the top 3 or 4 tier vocalists people always cite is Dickinson, Halford, Dio, and maybe Jeff Tate of Queensryche. But those are kind of the guys that can hit the high notes. And what's interesting, a lot like you, Joe, when I first got introduced to Maiden, by that point, Bruce Dickinson had taken over. But it's interesting, when I'd go back and I kind of discovered those first 2 Maiden albums, not knowing that Bruce Dickinson wasn't the singer on those 2 albums until after I bought them, but you listen to those first 2 albums, and it's definitely a different singer. But what's interesting is those first 2 albums, Iron Maiden almost had a little more of a punk element to what they did than metal.
Yeah. There was definitely a transformation or a maturing, maybe, with the band, with the way they wrote, the way they played, and it was something that developed. I think over time that just kind of naturally happened. I don't know that. I don't know the inner workings of the band, so I can't really say. But I don't think that Paul Di'Anno being in the band was any different in terms of them as musicians and songwriters. I think maybe it inspired them to write a little bit differently. Maybe hearing a different tone, a different vocal style, maybe a little bit. Yeah,
well, we're definitely different types of singers.
I think that happened as a result of them guys being musicians longer and developing and playing and honing their instruments. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough. Even since the formation of Iron Maiden, before Dickinson was ever, in the band, Steve Harris is one that's kind of steered the ship. He's kind of he's been the principal songwriter even with Dickinson. And what in doing some research for this tonight, Joe, I read on the Wikipedia they were saying like when they were making this album Somewhere in Time, they'd come up that huge tour, I think, behind Power Slave. And Bruce Dickinson, by the end of the tour, by the time he started recording this new album, he was just so burnt out from the road, and he was kind of suffering from writer's block or whatever. He didn't really have any material, and what he did have, Steve Harris didn't think it really, he didn't pass the smell test, so to speak, and Adrian Smith actually got involved with the writing at that point, and him and Steve, and I think it was Adrian Smith that wrote the 2 singles, which was Wasted Year and Stranger in a Strange Land.
Yeah, excellent songs. Yeah, Adrian Smith's a great guitarist, great songwriter, huge part of Iron Maiden too. The guy doesn't get enough credit as far as I'm concerned.
I will say that to the point that it's interesting talking about Somewhere in Time that Adrian Smith would he'd go on to record one more album, which of course was Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, and then he'd leave for a few years. And then Bruce Dickinson would, after that he'd do one more album, with the band as well, and then eventually, before they both went back to Maiden, Adrian appeared on some of Bruce's solo albums, which is kind of interesting, and I think they wrote a lot of great stuff together. I think one of my favorite of Bruce's solo albums they did together was Accident of Birth.
Oh yeah, that and Chemical Wedding.
Yeah.
What a great record that is. I love that record. Yeah, just groove, melody, harmony. I mean, just an explosion of musical masterpiece.
Yeah, and I dare say, I remember when Somewhere in Time first came out in '86. A lot of the Maiden fans, when it first came out, there's a little bit of a backlash because a lot of the Maiden fans at the time were under illusion. Okay, they're going for the radio single, they're going pop, or they're going commercial, because a lot of fans at the time didn't think it was quite as heavy as the previous albums.
Well, I think part of the blessing and curse. I've never been in a band that's successful or big.
Yeah.
But I think it's like I said, it's a blessing and a curse, and part of that is when you're in a band like Iron Maiden, people probably expect a lot of certain things, and whether you're doing a solo record or it's another band, they're always going to compare that to Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
No matter how hard that guy tries, no matter what that guy does, they're going to compare it to Iron Maiden, whether he likes it or not. And to a certain extent, that's kind of unfair because there's other sides of him, other aspects of him as a singer, as a songwriter, and he branched out and wanted to explore that, obviously, with several solo records. Yeah. And a lot of that stuff just got kind of pushed to the wayside. Really, I mean, it didn't really get the promotion and the credit that it really deserved, I feel. But again, like I said, I think any singer or any musician that's in a band that big, that famous, it's you're always going to be in that shadow, for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's and I think ultimately that's why both Bruce and Adrian returned to Iron Maiden, because I mean, like when Bruce put out his first solo album, he was still a member of Iron Maiden, and it was that Tattooed Millionaire, and I thought that was I'm like, oh wow, what a great debut solo album for him to come out with, and it had a little bit of a commercial pop appeal, but he was, like you said, he was trying to do something a little different than he had done in Iron Maiden, and that album was really well received. But then by the time he released his second solo album, which was another good album, but drastically different. I mean, it had the hit single, which was a ballad, "Tears of a Dragon" or something like that, and that got some fanfare and everything, even on MTV back in the day. But as he released each solo album, he was trying to constantly be evolving, and that's what a lot of the diehard fans didn't like. They said, "No, we don't want you to change your sound. We want you to sound like Iron Maiden." And I think that's ultimately why.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately why when him and Adrian did go back to Maiden, they found have a lot more success with Maiden than we are doing the solo thing.
Right. I still would love to see a massive, even just one show of all the classic top metal bands from the day, like Priest and Maiden and Sabbath or Dio, and all of those bands together in one big festival, one big show. I think that would just be amazing before it's too late. And some of them already is. Obviously Dio can't do it. Yeah. But it would be pretty fascinating from a fan perspective to see all those bands get together and have one big, massive, killer, heavy metal Woodstock.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you in reference to Dio. Obviously, it is too late for him, but I don't know if you ever had a chance to see the Dio Disciples, which is kind of his surviving band members that he was playing with at the time, and then they got Tim Ripper Owens and Oni Logan from the Lynch Mob as the two singers. And I went and saw the band perform in Disneyland when they did it, a number of years ago, and they called themselves the Dio Disciples. And I tell you, it was like nothing I'd ever experienced at a concert. It was like electric church. I mean, and these bandmates, they were not so much, obviously they're there to make a living, and they're making some dough doing it, but it's not like they were cashing in on Dio's death or anything. You could tell, first of all, the band was there to kind of play the music of Dio, keep his music alive, so to speak, for the fans. And the fans were there just loving it. I mean, it was like Electric Church. Everybody was up on their feet, singing in the name of Dio.
Oh, absolutely, man. And you watch interviews. You talk to Tim Owens about it, and that's what he says. He'll be the first to tell you. I'm not trying to copy Dio. I'm not trying to be Ronnie James Dio too. He's just trying to pay respect and pay tribute to him. And that's what it's about to him.
And see, a lot of those guys that were playing with him, and like Tim Owens, even. Ronnie really helped them in their career. Like I think Tim.
Absolutely.
Tim was even managed by Ronnie's wife Wendy. So and I know Craig Goldie, when he first joined Dio, he was kind of down on his luck, and from what I understand, he had nowhere to live. But Wendy and Ronnie let him come and live with him until he got on his feet.
Right, yeah. From everything I've ever heard, they were great people. They were great people, and they helped out the people that they loved, and. We're just the kind of people you'd want to hang out with and spend time with,
Yeah, and see, it's interesting because, like I said, Maiden is originally from England. They're one of those European, metal bands. Like you put them in the same class as like Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden, obviously, and Judas Priest. But I would say, like, to me, if you put those two bands together, okay, Priest and Black Sabbath, especially the original Black Sabbath. They had much more of a classic rock, European sound. Whereas Maiden kind of really has a sound. Maiden, except for being metal influenced, to me sounds nothing like Sabbath or even Judas Priest. I mean, Maiden kind of really stands on its own.
Yeah, they definitely have their own unique, identifiable sound and fingerprint, and music and their album covers. I mean, everything they do, it's very them. It's very, very unique and very original, and there'll never be another band like that.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this album we're talking about, Somewhere in Time, is the number of songs it has on it. It doesn't have 9, doesn't have 10 or 12 songs. It has 8. It has like 4 tracks on each side. And that's see, when this album first came out in '86, okay, at the time you had your choices. You could get it on vinyl, you could get it on CD, you even had cassette. So you had a few choices. And then the other thing about the way albums used to come out is because we didn't have the internet back then, so a lot of times you see the ads like in Circus Magazine or Hit Parade or Metal Edge or whatever the case may be, and that's how you first find out. Okay, this is when the new Maiden album's coming out. You see the picture. There was the anticipation. Oh, I can't wait to get the new album. Okay. Oh, it says here in the magazine. Okay, this is the release date. Okay, I'm gonna put that on my calendar. Go to a record store and buy it.
Right. And like you said, there was only 8 songs on there, but man, there were 8 really damn good songs.
Yeah. And see, and that's how they used to make albums. Like, okay, they had 8 great songs, like you said, on the album, but there was no filler material. I would call something like that all killer, no filler, in the sense that there were some bands that you buy the album and only had like maybe the hit single or the first 2 hit singles or whatever, and then everything else really didn't measure up. But like Maiden, like Priest and Ozzy and Van Halen and Kiss, they always delivered the goods.
Oh, absolutely. Every one of those bands are iconic that you just named.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, like Iron Maiden, very much like Metallica after them. By the time Somewhere in Time came out, MTV was still around. MTV was back then still actually playing music videos, and it was they used to have like a dial MTV where you could call up, and if they got so many requests for a certain band or the video, that they would play that band's video, and that's how a lot of these metal bands, even Maiden, would get in the top 10 or top 20 or get their songs played on the radio. And for a band like Iron Maiden back in 1986 to have their video played on MTV was a major thing.
Oh yeah, that was a whole other world for bands and musicians. Some of them did really well with it, and some of them complain and say that it ruined rock and roll or that it ruined the their careers because they weren't pretty boys or whatever the mishap was there. But all in all, I think it was a great thing, you know. And even now, I mean, it's not MTV, but it's YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, every time a band puts out an album, there's 5 different videos for the record, you know. I mean, lyric videos and official videos, and you know, and that's how they promote the records and launch kind of what they're doing. So video still is absolutely a big part of what a lot of metal bands are doing.
Yeah, and you know, see, back in the day, what a lot of people may fail to realize, we may have some of these kids listening to this, like what's MTV? What are they talking about? I mean, they used to have a cable channel, folks, that they played nothing but music related stuff, music videos, you know, and then, but even back in the day when they were playing these videos, a lot of bands, they not only did they not get their videos on MTV or played because they weren't popular enough, but a lot of the way they would get their videos played on MTV, they would have a record companies like send promo packs to MTV. They'd send them a lot of money to play very much like they used to do with radio back in the day. They record companies
very much was a business for sure.
Yeah, and a band, even a metal band, which you might be surprised, like Iron Maiden back in 1986, because they were very successful. You know, they even are still today. They had a lot of money with their, you know, backing them, so they had no problem getting their stuff on MTV. You know.
Right.
And even like we're talking about, you know, back in 1986, you still had like here in Los Angeles, they had a major. They're no longer around, but they had a major metal station like in Long Beach, California, KNAC. We kick ass, you know. They had these bumper stickers printed up, and all the bands, like when they come in, play Los Angeles, they stop by a radio station. Oh, we want you to play a new track off our new album. This is, this is the single, "Wasted Years" from Somewhere in Time. And like you said, back then they still had, you know, these rock magazines, and that's how, like, a lot of people never been to an Iron Maiden concert. They might see a picture of Bruce Dickinson in Circus Magazine or something like that for the first time, or Hit Parade or Metal Edge. Oh, that's what he looks like. Okay.
Right.
So there's a lot of cross promotion like that. So, is there anything else you want to kind of, like, when you look back on Somewhere in Time, that really stood out to you about that album?
Really, honestly, the whole record, man. I'm not one of these people generally that pick like a song or two and say, well, that was good, you know. I mean, I do, and I have opinions with that, but honestly, with Somewhere in Time, I love every song on that record. It's one of my favorite records, and it was a huge influence on me, you know. Like I said, the phrasing, the melodies, Bruce's voice, just everything about that record just, like, really had an impression on me, you know.
Yeah, and, you know, really interests me, like I said, in doing research for this interview tonight, Joe, is when I was reading online about the fact that, you know, again, you'd think because, okay, Bruce Dickinson, he's the lead singer, he must write all the songs. Again, unless you take the time to read the songwriting credits, and interestingly enough, he didn't write a single lyric or a single note on that whole album just because he was kind of burnt out from the touring. So the fact that, you know, Steve Harris or Adrian Smith was involved in songwriting on that album, and they wrote the lyrics, the music, and everything, and Bruce is able to do his thing vocally, even when the songs are written by other members of the band. That just shows you the talent he has as a vocalist, to take somebody else's writing and kind of do his thing with it.
Oh, absolutely. There's an undeniable chemistry there that makes an Iron Maiden, and Bruce is a huge part of that. Absolutely, whether he writes any of the lyrics or not. Yeah. I mean, it's part of their thumbprint, that's for sure. I
mean, he's very much involved with the writing for, if you look throughout the catalog, but on that one particular album, he wasn't. And again, it's just kind of, it's very interesting. You take a band like Motley Crue, and again, people might be under, oh, well, Vince Neil, he's the lead singer, he must write everything. No. Nikki Sixx actually kind of writes for Vince, you know. Nikki Sixx and Mick Mars are the main songwriters in that band, and it's kind of interesting. They work around what Vince is able to vocally do, and they write the songs. Very much like with the not Roger Daltrey. Pete Townshend's a hit maker, but Roger's kind of the voice they use to kind of, you know, deliver the music.
Right, yep.
And so, Joe, like I was saying at the top of the interview, we want to remind our friends listening to this tonight that you are very much a musician in your own right, and you have two bands that I know. You're in Scream Kings, and you're also with Dragon Lore. And when I was talking to you to set up the interview, you mentioned that Dragon Lore recently had a new single or video. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and what's going on with both the bands?
Well, we just threw out a little teaser clip of some new stuff that we've been writing. With this whole lockdown and stuff, we took advantage of it, and we've kind of been in pre-production, and we've written most of a new record already, going to be titled Rising from the Ashes. And
perfect title, by the way.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and it's a great record. Drake Mafesta, once again, did the artwork, did a fantastic, amazing job of bringing it to life. And I got a new lineup. I got the former shredders of the legendary Tyrant's Reign, Jeff Baggerpour, Phil Fouch, and Michael Giordano, along with myself and Wendell Craig, original drummer for Dragon Lore. So we're all working together, and June 20th, we start rehearsals to go into the studio and record the real deal, and we'll have a new album out in 2021, and be playing shows in support of that.
Oh, wow.
So real excited about that. The style's a little different. The songs are a little bit different.
We hope they
got a different sound to them, and but it's a great sound, and I'm having fun exploring different things and aspects of my voice, and writing to these ideas and formatting all these things and putting these pieces of the puzzle together, so to speak, and really looking forward to getting out there and playing in support of it. And
so have you actually recorded everything yet, or you kind of demoed it, and you're going to go into it?
Yeah, we just send demos back. We send demos back and forth to one another, and we kind of work at a distance like that, kind of, and writing ideas and formatting things, and then we'll get together and we'll refine everything and go through everything together collectively as a band, and put the polish to it, so to speak, and then we'll actually re-record all the tracks and release that's what you'll hear as the album, Maybe we'll keep a few of the demos, for like B-sides or something like that,
cool.
or a digital release or something fun like that. We'll probably do something like that, maybe too, because who knows what the final product's going to be, It might be, I don't think it'll be that different, but I'm sure there'll be some differences,
Well, we'd hope that there'd be a little, with any band, you'd hope there'd be a little bit of progression, and then also the fact that you've had a lineup change. Anytime you bring new people into the band, they're gonna bring their influences and stuff. So can't wait to hear that. Now, I of course have to ask you, Joe, before we let you go. You kind of brought up the COVID-19 thing with what's going on with the lockdown. I mean, there was a time when a lot of bands they thought, the only way you can make really a band can really make a living these days is going out and touring. Obviously, that's not possible right now. So, what's that been like for you guys to, first of all, not be able to go out and play any live shows, and then kind of really not knowing when you're going to be able to?
Well, like I said, nobody's got a crystal ball that's going to tell what the future holds.
Yeah.
When it all comes down to it, musicians are musicians.
Yeah.
This is what we do. We enjoy doing it. We're passionate about it. We're always going to do it. There's always going to be that. People are always going to feel that fire and that passion in their hearts.
Yeah.
So I think to some extent, in some way, it will always survive.
Yeah.
It just may be in a different format. There may be some differences in how it's presented.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate, but we'll roll with the punches,
There you go.
We'll take it as it comes. Our state is almost completely back open, as far as semi-normal. So we'll see how that goes, and hopefully things are going to look positive for everybody. I see a lot of clubs and stuff booking shows now again, and things are starting to slowly come back together in the near future. So that's a good sign. So hopefully that trend continues, and we'll be able to partake of that and be a part of that,
Yeah, I'll tell you. I have a friend that lives down in Anaheim, and they were sharing with me today that by Disneyland that they heard that they're going to allow Disneyland, get this, to open back up. None of the rides, or none of the main amusement parks, going to be able to open, but that they are going to be able to allow the restaurants to open back up, which is kind of interesting. People are going to be going to Disneyland for the food and not the rides. I mean, that's an interesting thing. And then I guess the final thing I want to ask you about, Joe, is the other band, Scream Kings, are you doing anything with them, or is that kind of put on hold while you're concentrating on Dragon Lore?
Well, I'm working a busy schedule, and our guitarist Rafael Hernandez for Scream King is as well with the virus outbreak. His company took on a huge slew of additional work, so he's been really busy and doesn't have a lot of downtime to work on things. But we're still very much alive, and little by little we're working on that, and we have a lot of great stuff as far as a new record for that. Videos, merchandise. The merchandise is available now. You can see it on ScreamKingOfficial.com.
Okay.
It's on the website, so you can check that out. And hopefully soon we'll be able to come up with something in terms of a release for that as well.
That's great. And to kind of end this on a positive note, I wanted to share with you that I was interviewing a friend of mine that's in a Kiss tribute band, and he was kind of sharing with me that he's already had one of these special online performances where his Kiss tribute band got together, and they kind of they had this performance online. I think it was on Facebook, and people were able to stream it live. And I've seen a lot of other bands doing that. And then I also recently seen a guitar player named Gary Hoey, quite a legendary guitar player in his own right. But I forget where it's going to be, but he's going to be performing have an outdoor drive-in concert somewhere. And I've heard they're doing this in Europe and some other states. I think that's going to be the future, maybe.
I've seen that as well, and again, I think eventually people are going to find a way. People love music, and they're always going to love music. They'll find a way to express that somehow, some way.
And have you given any thought, like in regards to Dragon Lore, since you guys are kind of keeping active and working on the new album? Have you thought about doing anything like that, having like an online rehearsal performance, or even a Q&A for your fans?
No, honestly, we just been real busy writing. Like I said, these guys sent me 12 new songs already, and I got 9 of them demoed out. And so we've just kind of been working like that, back and forth, and putting those puzzle pieces into place. So when we do get together, it's more efficient, and hopefully it'll only take us a couple of months, maybe, hopefully, and then we'll start actually recording the tracks for the album.
And do you feel with the lockdown, Joe, like you said, kind of taking advantage of that extra time you might not normally have? It's kind of a cool way to kind of just keep working on new stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Having a downtime for all of us has been kind of a strange blessing, like I said, because we just went crazy writing, and we spent a lot of time. And the good thing is I played in bands in the past with Phil and Jeff, but I've never played with Michael. So we got to know each other. We've talked a lot. We've shared a lot. So it's been good to have that bonding process and get to know these guys, and vice versa for them too. So when we do get together, I think it's going to be a lot more of an organic, natural flow to everything.
Oh, cool! I'm glad to hear that. Now, I want to thank you once again, Mr. Joe Lawson, taking time to talk to us for our new On the Record segment. We've been talking to you about Iron Maiden's 1986 album, which was, I think, the 6th Iron Maiden album, Somewhere in Time. That was one of the albums you included on your top 10 most influential albums. And another one that you put on there was the Wasp album, Headless Children. You were discussing maybe down the line we'll be doing another one of these segments and talking specifically about that album, because I think not only that album, but the band Wasp, a lot of people forgot about, and we need to kind of remind them of these great bands that people are forgetting about in these albums.
Absolutely, that's a standout album for sure. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, so I'll be in touch with you about that, Joe. But thanks so much for doing this. An interview here, probably getting posted in the next week or two. I'll be sure to let you know when it gets posted.
Thanks for having me, and everybody check out our Dragon Lore's first record, Lucifer's Descent.
Yeah, and please go on Facebook and you can look up Joe's personal Facebook page or Dragon Lore's page, and please support Joe and the band, because they're a great new up-and-coming band.
Thanks a lot, brother.
Okay, take care, Joe. Bye-bye.